The peaceful journey spun helplessly in the darkness of space, chunks of its beautiful crystal hull floating away like frozen tears. Captain Trelawney felt the cold creeping into her bones as the ship's heating systems failed, one by one. Her people were dying around her, their delicate crystal bodies slowly turning white as the life drained from them. She had known this mission was dangerous. The Outer Rim territories were lawless places where pirates hunted for easy targets. But the Zephyrian Council had insisted they needed to study the strange energy readings from this sector. Now her entire crew would pay the price for that decision. The Korath pirates had been brutal and efficient. Their massive scale-covered bodies and razor-sharp claws made them perfect predators. They had torn through the peaceful journeys, defenses like paper, taking everything valuable before leaving the research ship to die slowly in the void. It was their way of sending a message to other potential victims. Trelawney dragged herself to the communications console, her crystal fingers barely able to work the controls. The emergency beacon was their last hope, though she knew the chances were slim. This far from civilized space, who would even hear their call? And if someone did hear it, would they care enough to help a ship full of dying aliens? The beacon came to life with a weak hum. Trelawney poured all her remaining strength into the message, knowing it might be the last thing she ever did. Her voice cracked as she spoke into the transmitter. "This is research vessel, peaceful journey. We are dying out here. Our engines are gone. Life support is failing. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We're just scientists. We never hurt anyone. Please, ... Someone help us." The message launched itself into the endless black, traveling faster than light through the strange realm of subspace. It would take days to reach the nearest inhabited systems, if it reached them at all. Trelawney slumped against the console, feeling the cold winning its battle against her failing body heat. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Jake Thompson was having the worst night shift of his career at Earth Station Omega. The communications officer had been staring at static and space noise for 6 hours straight. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he was too tired to make another pot. The alien signal came through like a whisper in a hurricane of cosmic background radiation. Jake almost ignored it completely, just another piece of stellar interference, to log and forget. But something about the pattern made him stop. It was too organized, too purposeful to be natural. He ran the signal through the translation software, not expecting much. The computer had been working on alien language patterns for years, but they rarely got anything useful. Most alien communications were either too complex or too simple for the software to handle. But this time was different. The words slowly appeared on his screen, and Jake felt his blood run cold. This wasn't some random space noise or equipment malfunction. This was a real distress call from real people who were dying right now. Jake read the message 3 times, making sure he wasn't seeing things. Then he grabbed his emergency communicator and punched in the code for command. His hands were shaking as he waited for someone to answer. "Command, this is Station Omega. I've got an emergency here. We just received what appears to be an alien distress call. They're saying they're dying and need immediate assistance." The voice on the other end was skeptical. "Thompson, are you sure about this? We've had false alarms before." Jake looked at his screen again, reading those desperate words one more time. Somewhere out there in the dark, people were counting their last breaths and hoping someone would care enough to help them. "Sir, I'm absolutely certain. These people are in real trouble, and we might be their only hope." Admiral Mike Harrison sat in the cramped briefing room aboard the UES Liberty, staring at the alien message that had just changed everything. The holographic display showed a star map with their current position and the source of the distress call, marked by a pulsing red dot, deep in what everyone called the dead zone, a stretch of space where pirates ruled and decent folks didn't venture. The message had taken 4 days to reach them through subspace, which meant those aliens had Been dying out there for almost a week now. Harrison could feel the weight of that knowledge pressing down on his shoulders like a lead blanket. For days. In 4 days, a lot of people could die around the conference table. His senior officers looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Colonel Danny Rodriguez was the first to speak up, her voice tight with concern. Admiral, with all due respect, this has trap written all over it. Pirates have used fake distress calls before, to lure ships into ambushes. Harrison nodded slowly, understanding her worry. Rodriguez had lost friends to pirate attacks before, and her caution came from hard experience. But something about this message felt different. The desperation in those words, the technical details about their failing systems, it all seemed too real to be fake. You might be right, Colonel, Harrison admitted, zooming in on the sector map. But what if you're wrong? What if there really are people out there dying while we sit here debating whether it's safe to help them? Captain Tom Bradley leaned forward, his weathered face showing every one of his 50 years in space. Mike, I understand the impulse to help. We all do, but you're talking about sending the entire 7th Fleet into hostile territory. That's 12 ships and 30,000 of our people. For aliens we've never even met before. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Harrison could feel everyone's eyes on him, waiting for his decision. He thought about his grandfather, who had served in the old Earth Navy back when humans were still stuck on one planet. The old man had told him stories about the unwritten code of the sea, that you always answered a distress call, no matter who was making it, or how dangerous it might be. Sir, Rodriguez tried again, even if this is real, we don't know anything about these They could be hostile. They could be criminals running from justice. Hell, they could be carrying some kind of plague or bioweapon. Harrison stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were probably taking their last breaths, hoping against hope that someone would care enough to help them. The thought made his chest tight. You know what, Danny? You're absolutely right. We don't know anything about them. But here's what we do know. They're dying, and they ask for help. That's enough for me. He turned back to face his officers, and they could see the decision was already made. Prep the fleet for immediate departure. I want all ships ready to jump in 2 hours. Bradley shook his head. The Joint Chiefs are going to have your head for this. Mike, deploying an entire fleet without authorization into hostile territory for aliens we've never even made contact with. They'll court-martial you for sure. Harrison smiled grimly. Let them try. Tom, my grandfather used to tell me that there are 2 kinds of people in this universe, those who help when they hear a cry for help, and those who find excuses not to. I know which kind I want to be. He moved back to the table and started pulling up fleet deployment charts. Besides, if we're wrong and it is a trap, at least we'll go down fighting for the right reasons. And if we're right. He paused, thinking about those desperate aliens waiting in the dark. If we're right, then we just became the kind of species that other people can count on when everything goes wrong. Rodriguez sighed, but stood up to leave. I'll get the fleet ready. Sir? 2 hours. Thank you, Colonel, and Danny. Make sure everyone understands we're not going out there to start a war. We're going to save lives. The jump from hyperspace always made Captain David Mitchell's stomach lurch, but this time the feeling was worse than usual. As the used Defiant dropped back into normal space, the tactical screens lit up with a scene that made his blood boil. The alien research ship floated dead in the void, its beautiful crystal hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into space. But that wasn't the worst part. 13 pirate ships of different shapes and sizes surrounded the dying vessel like vultures around a carcass. Mitchell could see smaller craft moving between the ships, and his enhanced optics showed him something that made his jaw clench. Delicate, crystal-like beings were being dragged from their ship by massive reptilian creatures with scales and claws. The aliens looked fragile as glass dolls in the pirates' rough hands. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Amy Williams from the weapons station. Are those things torturing them? Mitchell watched as one of the crystal beings was thrown roughly into a cargo hold, its body making a sound like breaking wind chimes when it hit the metal floor. Not for much longer they're not, he growled. The bridge fell silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Every human crew member was watching the screens, seeing the same horrible scene playing out. These weren't soldiers or criminals being captured. These were scientists, researchers, people who had probably never hurt anyone in their lives. The communication system crackled to life, and a harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. Unknown vessels. This salvage is already claimed by the Korath Brotherhood. You will depart immediately, or be destroyed like the crystal weaklings. Mitchell felt something cold settle in his chest. He'd heard that tone before, from bullies and thugs who thought might made right. The kind of people who picked on anyone they thought couldn't fight back. Lieutenant Williams, target their command ship. I want a weapons lock on everything they've got. His voice was steady, but everyone on the bridge could hear the steel underneath. Aye, sir. Weapons locked and ready. Communications. Open a channel to all pirate vessels. The comm officer nodded. Channel open, Captain. Mitchell stood up from his command chair, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. This is Captain David Mitchell of the United Earth ship Defiant. You will release those civilians immediately and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. The response came back as harsh laughter that sounded like grinding metal. Deathworlders ship thinks it can give orders to the Korath Brotherhood. Look around you, Softskin. We count 13 ships to your 12. Your pathetic fleet should submit now, or we will add your bones to our collection. Mitchell looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people, men and women who had volunteered to cross the galaxy to help strangers. They didn't deserve to die because some pirates thought humans were easy prey. Sir, called out Ensign Rick Torres from the sensor station. I'm reading massive weapon signatures from all pirate vessels. They're powering up to fire. They wouldn't dare, whispered Williams. But they did dare. Bright energy beams shot out from the pirate fleet, targeting the human destroyer Courage. The ship's shields flared brilliant blue as they absorbed the impact, but the vessel held steady. Captain Janet Moore's voice came over the fleet communication channel.com as ice. Defiant. This is Courage. Shields holding at 80%. No significant damage. These boys hit like my grandmother. Mitchell felt a grim smile cross his face. The pirates had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had fired on a human fleet that had come here to save innocent people. Now there would be consequences. All ships. This is Admiral Harrison, came the fleet commander's voice over the comm. You are authorized to engage. Show these slavers what happens when they mess with people under human protection. Mitchell turned to his weapons officer, his voice colder than the space between stars. Lieutenant Williams, you heard the Admiral. All weapons, full power. Target their engines first. I want survivors to spread the word about what happens to pirates who hurt civilians. Aye, sir. Weapons hot and ready. Then light them up. The battle began with a roar of energy weapons that lit up space like deadly fireworks. But what the pirates expected to be a quick slaughter turned into their worst nightmare in less than 20 minutes. The human ships moved like predators that had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. When the first wave of pirate missiles struck the UES Thunderbolt, something incredible happened. The massive human battleship didn't explode or retreat. Instead, it absorbed the hits like they were raindrops, its thick armor plating barely showing scorch marks. Captain Rex Morgan, on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, watched the damage reports with grim satisfaction, hull integrity at 98%. These pirates hit like children throwing rocks. But Morgan wasn't content to just take punishment. He turned to his helmsman with a smile that would have terrified the pirates if they could see it. Take us straight through their command cruiser. Let's show them what a real ship looks like. The Thunderbolt accelerated directly toward the largest pirate vessel. Its reinforced prow designed to punch through asteroid fields and space debris. The pirates tried desperately to get out of the way, but human ships were faster than they looked. The collision was spectacular. The human battleship carved through the pirate cruiser like a sword through paper. Its hull barely scratched, while the enemy ship split apart in a shower of sparks and debris. The other pirates watched in horror as their flagship died in seconds. But the real terror was yet to come. Human boarding pods launched from the fleet like angry hornets, carrying Marines in powered armor that looked like something from a nightmare. Sergeant Beth Anderson led the first wave, her squad moving through the pirate ships with deadly efficiency. The Korath pirates were big, strong, and vicious, but they had never faced anything like human Marines. Anderson's armor let her fight. In the vacuum of space, in crushing gravity, in toxic atmospheres that would kill most aliens in seconds. When a massive pirate warrior tried to tackle her, she grabbed him with her powered gauntlets and threw him through a bulkhead like he weighed nothing. These aren't warriors, she radioed to her squad as they cleared another ship. They're bullies who never met anyone who could fight back. The pirates had spent their lives terrorizing peaceful species who couldn't defend themselves. They had never encountered predators from a death world, beings who had evolved to survive on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Inside the damaged Zephyrian research ship, Captain Trelawney watched the battle through her failing viewports. Her crystal body was weak from the cold, but she couldn't look away from the incredible sight outside. These unknown aliens were destroying the pirates who had seemed so invincible just minutes before. "Captain," whispered her science officer, "what kind of beings are these? They fight like demons, but their transmissions suggest they came here just to help us." Trelawney watched as a human medic in white armor carefully entered their ship, his movements gentle despite the deadly battle raging outside. Dr. Kevin Walsh moved from one injured Zephyrian to another, his scanner devices reading their alien biology while his hands worked to stabilize their failing life signs. "Careful now," Walsh said softly, even though he knew they probably couldn't understand him. "You're going to be okay. We're here to help." The contrast was stunning. Outside, human warriors were dismantling pirate ships with brutal efficiency. Inside, human healers were saving lives with the same dedication. These weren't mindless killers or peaceful weaklings. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. "They're survivors," Trelawney finally answered, her science officer, watching Walsh inject medicine into her wounded navigator. "They come from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill them, but they survived. More than survived, they became something new." The last pirate ship exploded in a brilliant flash, and suddenly the space around the peaceful journey was quiet except for the gentle hum of human rescue ships moving into position. A new voice filled their bridge, calm and reassuring. "This is Admiral Mike Harrison of the United Earth Fleet. You're safe now. We're here to help, and we're going to get you home." Trelawney felt something she hadn't experienced in days: hope. These humans had crossed hostile space to save strangers, asking for nothing in return. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth had produced something unprecedented: warriors with hearts, predators who protected the innocent. The age of easy prey was over. 3 months had passed since the rescue, but the story was still spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. In cantinas on distant worlds, traders whispered about the mysterious humans who had appeared from nowhere to save a dying research ship. On peaceful planets, civilians slept better knowing that somewhere out there, warriors existed who would cross hostile space just to help strangers. The Great Hall of the Galactic Consortium had never been more packed. Representatives from over 100 different species filled the massive chamber, all wanting to hear the story firsthand from the only survivors who had witnessed humanity's first act on the galactic stage. Captain Trelawney stood at the central podium, her crystalline body catching the light As she spoke, even after 3 months of medical treatment, she still bore the scars of that terrible day when the pirates had left her crew to die in the cold of space. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "I stand before you as living proof that we are no longer alone in our struggles against the darkness. There exists a species that calls their homeworld Earth, a planet so hostile that by our standards, it should be completely uninhabitable." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Most species in the consortium had evolved on gentle worlds with stable climates and predictable seasons. The idea of intelligent life developing on a truly dangerous planet seemed impossible. Trelana continued, "Their world has crushing gravity that would flatten most of us, violent storms that could level our cities, and an atmosphere so reactive it would poison our systems. Yet from this hellish environment came beings who chose not just to survive, but to reach out and protect others." In the human delegation section, Ambassador Robert Chen sat quietly, still somewhat overwhelmed by the attention. Next to him, Admiral Mike Harrison watched as representative after representative stood to request formal diplomatic contact with Earth. 3 months ago, humanity had been unknown to the galaxy. Now, everyone wanted to be their friend. The questions came rapidly from the assembled delegates. How many ships did Earth have? What were their territorial claims? What did they want in exchange for their protection? Each question revealed how little the galaxy understood about human nature. It was the Korath representative who finally voiced what many were thinking. The massive reptilian creature rose from his seat, his scales gleaming under the chamber. "Lights. Honored Zephyrian," he hissed, "surely you exaggerate these humans' capabilities. No species could evolve on such a hostile world and still retain what you call civilized behavior. Survival of the fittest demands cruelty." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the Korath had been the ones doing the raiding, the enslaving, the casual murder of innocents. If the humans were really as dangerous as Trelana claimed, what did that mean for species like the Korath, who had built their culture on preying on the weak? Trelana's body made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, the Zephyrian equivalent of laughter. "Representative Korath, your skepticism is understandable. After all, your people have never encountered true predators before." She turned to the human delegation. "Admiral Harrison, perhaps you could share with the Council the tactical recordings from Sergeant Beth Anderson's boarding action." Harrison smiled and shook his head. "I'm afraid those recordings would violate several galactic warfare conventions. Some things are too intense for general viewing." The Korath representative shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Around the chamber, other delegates leaned forward with new interest. What exactly had these humans done that was too violent to show? "You see," Trelana explained to the assembled crowd, "this is what makes humans unique. They possess the capacity for incredible violence, but they choose when and how to use it. They don't fight for territory or resources or dominance. They fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves." She gestured toward the human delegation. "When these beings received our distress call, they didn't ask about our species' politics. They didn't inquire about potential profit or strategic advantage. They didn't calculate the probability of success or the cost in lives and resources. They asked only one question: how fast can we get there?" The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates turned to each other, debating the implications. Ambassador Chen stood and requested permission to speak. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that humans were becoming known for. "My people didn't come to the stars looking for conquest or profit. We came looking for others who shared our belief that life is precious, that suffering should be prevented when possible, and that no one should face the darkness alone." As the formal session ended and diplomatic negotiations began, word continued to spread throughout the galaxy. The age of easy conquest was ending. Somewhere out there, warriors from a death world were listening for distress calls, ready to cross any distance to help those in need. Pirates began avoiding the Outer Rim territories. Slavers found their trade routes mysteriously disrupted. And on peaceful worlds throughout the galaxy, people looked up at the stars with new hope. Humanity had arrived, and they had brought their own rules to the cosmos.